Hello, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One fanatics. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your can't get no satisfaction host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the 1965 season part 2. So let's go.
Stones in there, Luigi?
Yep. I said it was going to be all about good music, and we're back to good music era. So I've dropped the inventions because the music has improved.
Yes.
And when the music drops off, I'll go back to the inventions. So we're up to race 3, the Belgium Grand Prix. This race was on the 13th of June at Spa, as usual. 32 laps, 19 drivers, and a 3x2x3 grid formation. While we're back at Spa, things did not get off to a good start because there were lots of arguments over starting money, mainly for the non-factory teams, which actually did not get resolved until after the first practice session. So the grid was actually not set until after the second session when all 20 drivers actually participated.
More and more of these arguments over money, don't we? Like as the sport becomes more popular and enters that more commercial era, like I'm imagining that there's more sponsors here. We did see sponsors come in a few years ago. It's screaming out for someone to come and take control of this element of the sport. I say very tongue-in-cheek.
And those that know the history of Formula One know that's coming. That doesn't come to like 1980 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But we go through heartache between now and then. So this sort of protesting happens a lot, I think. Yeah, so back to qualifying, and pole itself was set by Hill with a time of 3 minutes 45.4, followed by Clark in the Lotus and Stewart, Hill's teammate, in the BRM for third. Ginther in the Honda took fourth alongside Gurney in the Brabham on the second row.
A really good result for Honda, finally. Like they debuted last year. And Stewart, that is an amazing effort for a rookie.
I know, big time, isn't it? Yeah. So heavy rain fell on the morning of the race. So by the start, the track was soaking wet with a lot of standing water.
Okay, so this is when we're going to see the cream rising to the top again with these changeable conditions and wet tracks. This is going to be interesting.
So Hill and Clark had a great start and actually headed into Eau Rouge side by side. Hill was having the better time, however, from pole and took the lead going up the hill, but beginning of the straight, Clark went past the BRM and pretty much immediately started pulling away. So much so that by the end of the first lap, he was already 3 seconds clear.
Wow, that is an amazing start from Clark. And as much as he hates this track, he races it really well, like even in the wet.
Yeah,
like
you may recall...
Hill had the better line from pole there, but... Clark still got past him by the end of the straight. That's pretty good. Yeah,
and as a reminder, what was the year that Clark was put off by this track? It was the year by those deaths.
Yeah, those deaths happened. I think it was 61.
Yeah, I can't remember the year now, but it was. That's why he hates 61. The track because of the carnage and literally, unfortunately, bodies were on the side of the track and the drivers could see them, and they didn't stop the race. Of course,
so
pretty horrific. Behind Hill came Stewart, so Hill was in second, Stewart in third in the BRM, Surtees in the Ferrari, then Ginther in the Honda and McLaren in the Cooper. So during the next lap, Clark pulled another 4 seconds out while Hill's BRM struggled in the wet conditions.
Was it the BRM or Hill in the BRM struggling?
I sort of put onus on the driver.
I think Mike Lang's book says BRM very clearly. So
he's looking after Hill's reputation.
He is.
So Hill did all he could to keep the car on the track, but by lap 4, he had to let his teammate Stewart through, and on the following lap, Surtees also overtook the struggling BRM. Not the struggling Hill.
Not the struggling Hill. Exactly.
So Surtees' Ferrari then suffered an engine failure. He's having a bit of a bad run with things lately, hasn't he? So Hill retook third position.
Well, he was also not having a good time out there. A bit lucky for him that the Ferrari died there.
Yeah. So the order is now Clark, Stewart, Hill, McLaren and Ginther, as the Honda also slowed down, allowing McLaren to overtake. Then little changed for the next few laps, and everyone was very impressed with Stewart's performance in his first race at this circuit and in the wet. So by half distance, Clark and Stewart were well and truly on their own, with Hill a very distant third. McLaren, though, was catching Hill, and on lap 18 was able to pass the BRM. Not pass Hill,
Oh,
pass the BRM.
BRM.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Who's in this BRM? Don't know.
Yeah, what about Stewart? Why isn't Stewart having the same problems, you know?
Right, exactly.
So Ginther was slowly losing places down the field as his Honda struggled in the wet. See, the Honda,
Yeah,
not Ginther.
Not Ginther.
Yeah. So now it was Jack Brabham, who had started 12th and was actually catching Phil Hill's fourth placed BRM.
Not Phil Hill, Graham Hill.
Did I say Phil?
You did.
whoops.
What?
That was a slip up, wasn't it?
He's retired.
Okay. Yeah. So with 26 out of the 32 laps completed, Clark had lapped the entire field except for Stewart. And Stewart himself was over 60 seconds behind Clark.
Wow, what a drive. And in the wet. Like, he had really some very sublime skill, didn't he, Clark? He so deserves to be in those GOAT conversations and debates.
Yeah, and these people behind him,
I
they're
know.
themselves legends.
Yes.
You know? So, yeah. It was always, to me, it's a very special time to see this sort of thing, and to see them racing each other and seeing Clark so far ahead, pretty impressive. So to the race, things started to get a bit scary for Clark though, as his clutch started to slip on his Lotus 33.
Oh, no. Slipping clutches. That's the other big player in this era. Did you get any insights from your technical friends at that event, Luigi, on clutches?
No, other than I think what I've said was that the gearbox and clutches in those days were never intended to be used for this level of punishment from these overpowered engines. They were like stock clutches,
Yeah, okay.
so to speak.
Yeah.
The fancy like special racing clutches and gearboxes didn't come till later in the 60s, I was told by the statesmen of the sport, the guys that actually lived in the 60s and were racing. So, yeah. So to the race itself, Stewart was then able to close within 25 seconds of Clark, but then Clark's clutch returned to normal and he eventually crossed the line 44.8 seconds over Stewart in the BRM. So this gave Clark his fourth win in a row at Spa. Stewart was second, McLaren third, Brabham fourth and Hill fifth.
Wow. So Clark pretty much on his own the whole race again. Okay. So
yeah.
Championship standings after this race, Jim Clark on 18, Graham Hill on 15, Jackie Stewart on 11. Pretty good.
Close.
And the constructors, we have BRM on 19, the Lotus on 18 and Ferrari on 12.
That Ferrari's not doing so well this year. I mean, it's
No.
sort of up there, but you can tell that the guard has changed, hasn't it?
I don't. Yeah, it almost as if the 1964 win by Ferrari was a bit of an anomaly, Luigi.
Yeah, and maybe not even deserved in itself.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. We're up to the fourth race of the season, the French Grand Prix. This race was held on the 27th of June at the Circuit des Charades Clermont-Ferrand. I think I'm close. It's a 40-lap race, 17 drivers and a 3x2x3 grid formation. So this French Grand Prix was raced and the Circuit Charade for the first time and was described as a quicker, twistier version of Nürburgring.
Gosh.
That's pretty big
That's
call.
a big call, yeah. It was only 8 kilometres long though, not 22, so that's good. And it was actually constructed in 1958, but it was never used for Formula One. So many of the drivers had to learn this new circuit, like during practice sessions. Like there was no sim in those days. Like these days, all the drivers know this tracks off by heart from doing simulator racing on it. But yeah, in these days, they had to actually learn the track during the practice sessions.
Yeah, except for Holm, Denny Holm, the New Zealander, because he had actually won an F2 race here in 64. And as a result of that, he actually, because of his familiarity with the track, he was actually able to set the fastest time in the first practice session in the Brabham.
Hang on, so if he's driving, did they enter 3 cars or who's not driving?
Well, this is where we have a unique situation. Brabham actually, as in Jack Brabham, decided to stand down for this race and actually handed his car over to Holm.
Wow, that is huge. Maybe he just, you know how we said that he wanted to like concentrate on managing the team. And maybe there were some issues he had to tend to. But that's a bit cool, isn't it? Like, he's a defending world champion, double world champion.
Yeah, it's. I guess he's thinking of himself as a manager.
Yeah.
But he can still drive.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, big move by him. So, and maybe he knew his car wasn't going to win a championship this year, so he was more focusing on making their car be ready for a championship.
Yep.
And that will come to light.
Yes, in the next few years. Yes.
In the next few years, yeah. By the end of the practice, though, Holm had slipped down to 6th on the grid, with pole actually going to Clark with a time of 3 minutes 18.3. Stewart second, 2 minutes. He was second, 0.5 seconds behind, and then the Ferraris and Bandini and Surtees were third and fourth.
So where is the BRM team leader, Graham Hill?
Yeah, well, Hill had a big accident during the first practice session, and his throttle got stuck on his BRM after the suspension went on his car. So this sent his car spinning into a rock face on the edge of the track.
Jeepers.
And was he okay with that, Rosa?
Yeah, I think he escaped with only a strained neck, but the car was badly damaged, and he was obviously shaken, and he really wasn't in contention for any of the top spots during the second practice session.
Oh, interesting. Now, I was going to mention just quickly, because this is the first time most of these drivers have been at this track except for Holm, I wanted to recount a brief story from Spencer Martin when I caught up with him, and I've mentioned him in previous episodes. He's the 66, 67 Australian driving champion. One thing he remembered or recalled from his time with Clark and racing against Clark in the Tasman series back in those days was that when Clark went to a track for the first time, he said most drivers would take many laps to get familiar, to get their head around the track, get the racing line, and set their fastest lap. Spencer's comment was, you put Clark on any track, and generally on the third lap, he would set the fastest lap of the whole weekend on that third lap. So just 2 laps to familiarise, guns it on the third, and that's pretty much it. And he got pole position on this track that he'd never been at. So pretty impressive. In the end, back to Hill, he actually ended up qualifying in 11th place. Yeah.
Understandable. Like, we've seen the accidents that have happened in this era and the consequences. He would have been really shaken by that accident.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, on the race day, it was clear and everyone got off to a very good start. As usual, Clark took the lead, and in a big surprise, the flat 12 Ferrari of Bandini got up into second from fourth on the grid.
Well, can that Ferrari challenge Clark in that Lotus? I mean, he's in the 25 again this race, not the 33. And Clark has had 2 wins from 2 starts so far. I know he missed Monaco, but I reckon he would have won that race too if he'd started it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
At the end of that first lap, Clark was 3 seconds ahead of Bandini, followed by Stewart in the BRM, Gurney in the Brabham, and Surtees in the Ferrari. On lap 2, Stewart got past Bandini, and then on lap 3, so did Gurney and Surtees. But by this stage, Clark was ahead by 5 seconds.
Wow. Like, Clark is in fine form. No one can touch him.
Yeah, it's dramatic, isn't it?
And Bandini, I'm not going to say the villain, Luigi. What? You wrote the villain.
Wrote what I said for you to say.
No, I'm not saying that.
And Bandini, the villain of 64, is not in five. I'll do it in Rosa. And Bandini, the villain of 1964.
That is rude. That is just rude. Bandini, well, yes, he's slipping back. Poor Bandini.
Yeah. So the retirements come thick and fast, which included the 2 Hondas of Bucknam and Ginther, along with mechanical issues for Surtees and the Ferrari.
Wonder if Ginther is regretting leaving BRM for Honda about now. Like, we don't mention him a lot. Plus, he's seeing these great results for Stewart. Maybe he could have, he could have been in his place, maybe.
Potentially, but Stewart achieved a hell of a lot more than Ginther did. So I think Stewart is the difference. But
I think so too.
He would have, Ginther in his mind thinking obviously these drivers have to have high confidence.
Yes.
Ginther must have thought, I could have done that.
That could be me. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. I would have done better than that even.
Right.
Because remember, Stuart's a rookie.
Yeah, exactly.
So he didn't know what Stuart was about to become. So yeah. So to the race, with all of these retirements, Holm actually benefited the most out of all. And he was now running in fourth after overtaking McLaren in the Cooper and Bandini in the Ferrari and Spence in the Lotus. So really good result for
Holm.
Justifying Brabham's decision, you know. Yeah. So Clark had the race sewn up by half distance pretty much. He was 15 seconds ahead of Stewart and over a minute clear of Surtees, whose V8 Ferrari was actually starting to misfire.
Oh, no. Maybe he should have chosen the flat 12 instead of the V8.
Yeah.
But hang on. He had a misfire in 1964 in that last race, and that miraculously cleared up. So maybe that will happen here too. We don't hear about it often. We usually hear of misfirings ending people's races. But anyway.
Yeah, worth the roll of the dice, isn't it? So let's see if he finishes. So 2 laps from the end, Bandini threw away his 5th spot with a spin, which ended his race and handed 5th place to Hill.
You happy now? Are you happy?
Yeah. Look, this doesn't count. This is it's irrelevant now.
Oh, now it's irrelevant.
Yeah. In the words of Mike Lang, after 40 laps and to the relief of the spectators, Clark received the checkered flag to win a rather dull race.
Well, it's only dull if you're not a Jim Clark fan. But that's 3 wins from 3 starts. I thought he'd be happy that it was Jim Clark, you know? We thought he was a Jim Clark fan and that he was dominating so much.
I know. I was shocked to hear him say that because if you are a Jim Clark fan, aren't you just lapping it up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe he was like integrity reporter, maybe.
However, he did call the season Clark and Lotus rise to the top.
Yes.
Why didn't he write to the relief of all of us this season to be over fast? So the final order is Clark first, Stewart second, Surtees third, Holm and then Hill. Okay,
so Clark gets a Grand Slam, I think for the second time this season. I think that's...
Wow.
Yeah, and I think he's the first person to do it since Ascari did it. Getting
like 2 in a row, you mean?
2 in a season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we have Jim Clark on 27, Graham Hill on 17 and Jackie Stewart also on 17. Oh, that must be really getting into Hill's head there. And Surtees on 13. And then on the constructors table, we've got Lotus on 27, BRM on 25 and Ferrari on 16.
Okay. So we're up to the British Grand Prix, race 5 of 10. This race was held on the 10th of July at Silverstone. It's an 80-lap race, 21 drivers and a 4x3x4 grid formation. So Brabham actually entered 3 cars for this race, and surprisingly, Holm actually set the fastest time during the first practice session. So he's showing a little bit of talent here, isn't he? However, by the end of the first session, Clark was on pole with a time of 1 minute 30.8, followed by Hill just 0.2 behind. Ginther in the Honda in third and Stewart in the BRM fourth on the front row.
Okay, well, Ginther's finally doing something with that Honda. He's up there.
Yeah, he's sort of starting to shine. Second row was Surtees, now using the flat 12 Ferrari engine, Spence in the Lotus and Gurney in the Brabham. So on race day, though, disaster struck, if you're a Brabham fan, because during the warm-up lap, Gurney's engine actually blew up. Without hesitation, Jack Brabham handed his car over to his teammate and posted himself as a non-starter.
Wow. What a great leader.
Yeah, really impressive, isn't it? So I wonder if that had happened with Holm. Would he have done the same thing?
I think he would have. I think he's just thinking about the team.
Yeah. And he knows it. And let's face it, we've seen Gurney sort of outpace Brabham a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
But Holm was a newcomer. But
he was,
anyway.
I know. But Brabham was sort of distracted with the team, wasn't he?
Yeah. He basically is building himself up to be Enzo Ferrari.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And he sort of does.
Sort of.
He becomes an Enzo Ferrari. Yeah. So anyway, seconds later, the race was underway with Ginther in the Honda just beating Clark into Copse to take the Copse corner to take the lead.
Wow. From mostly forgetting about Ginther, he's now getting all of our attention.
Yeah.
Like, does this give him an automatic place in your TP championship picks, Luigi?
Well, let's see how Stuart goes, because I've got a bias there and I've got to overcome. It's got to be good enough to beat the bias for Stuart. That's the thing. So yeah, let's see. Clark, however, overtook the Honda on the Hanger Straight, and then on lap 2, Surtees and Hill also get past the Honda. And that's how they ran for a while, with Stewart following in 5th.
Everyone would be so happy to see Clark and Hill up there and Stewart like doing well. Like, this is British Grand Prix, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And let's not forget that time in 63 when Mike Land stated in his review that all the fans were here to see Clark, and Hill was also on the grid, and he was a defending champion at the time.
Yeah.
That was so funny. And then he sort of hides behind his love of Clark a bit and says stuff like throwing him under the bus a bit. He gives very mixed messages.
Yeah, like the crowd was relieved to have the race finally over.
Exactly. That's right. Anyway, we love Mike Lang. We do love him.
Yeah. So gradually Clark and Hill started to pull away, and they were in a league of their own, leaving Surtees and Ginther to sort out 3rd place, and behind them was a battle between Stewart, Spence and the rest. By lap 20, Clark had a 5-second lead over Hill, so Clark was asserting himself, who was himself over 12 seconds ahead of Surtees. Ginther's Honda was now misfiring, so he was dropping down the field and finally retired on lap 27.
Poor Ginther. That Honda just needs some reliability. It seems to have okay speed on the right track. It just doesn't get through the races.
Well, he's doing everything I need him to do to get a TP pick, because you have to do well at the start and retire
because of some
and then you get my attention.
Mechanical issue, exactly.
Yeah, you're not allowed to finish in the podium. That's the number one rule for me. Yeah. Holm unfortunately also retired with a broken alternator. And then at the halfway mark, Clark was leading Hill by a comfortable 17 seconds, and Hill was leading Surtees by 20 seconds. So they pretty paced out those top 3.
Yeah, this is going to be like a procession race now from now on. I hope Mike Lang doesn't attack Clark again and say that it was a boring race. Poor Clark.
Yeah. So the action was actually further back. So Spence and the Lotus got passed by Stewart in the BRM for 5th place, and Stewart was now soon challenging the Ferrari of Surtees for 3rd. And this was the main excitement of the race, given that Clark was more than 40 seconds ahead of Hill.
Yep. It's a procession.
Yeah. But good battles coming up. So with 20 laps remaining, Clark's engine started to splutter.
Oh, no.
The stopwatches came out to measure the gap between him and Hill. Things got worse for Clark as his oil pressure started to drop, and then by lap 70, the gap had shrunk to 25 seconds.
That Lotus better hang on.
Now, this is an 80-lap race.
Yeah.
So we've got 10 laps to go. So Clark, thinking fast, chose to nurse his car to the finish by actually killing the engine through the fast corners.
What? Hang on. I always thought that starting and stopping an engine puts more stress on the engine rather than lessen it. But hey, I'm neither a mechanic nor am I the great Jim Clark, nor am I anyone to actually challenge him. But,
I would have thought the same as you, Rosa, so I'm surprised. Yes. Yeah. But he knows. He knows better than you and me.
Absolutely.
And probably everyone listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
So let's not forget, this is actually Mike Lang's story. I mean, Jim Clark's home race. So to the race and the drama at present, Jim Clark was losing at least 2 seconds per lap, which was allowing Hill to close up quite rapidly.
Wow. The fans must have been going nuts.
Yeah. It was a cliffhanger, but Clark held on to win by just 3.2 seconds, despite the fact that Hill pulled out a new lap record while he was himself nursing failing brakes. So Hill probably would have won this race if he didn't have that problem.
Yes.
So Surtees took 3rd and Stewart came home in 5th. Let me just see who came 4th. Why didn't I mention 4th? Having a look. It looks like it was Spence. Spence was 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's 4 wins in a row at the British Grand Prix for Jim Clark. just like he did in Spa. He won 4 in a row at Spa as well. So he's really kind of asserting his dominance over the whole competition over many years, isn't he?
Yeah.
So
okay,
we have Clark on 36, Hill on 23, Stewart on 19, and Surtees on 17. And we've got on the constructor side, Lotus on 36, BRM on 31, and Ferrari on 20.
Okay. So now we're up to the Dutch Grand Prix. And the championship is looking pretty much in Clark's favour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking strong.
Something drastic has to happen from now.
Yeah, the car's reliable as well, except for the last part, except for the last 10 laps of that race.
That's right.
So we're at the Dutch Grand Prix, race 6 of 10. It's on the 18th of July at Zandvoort. It's an 80-lap race, 17 drivers, and the grid formation is 3x2x3. So practice actually started less than a week after the British Grand Prix. So there was little change in the lineup. And it quickly became evident that the Honda Challenge was gaining momentum, with Ginther actually setting the fastest lap in first practice, with rain slowing down further times.
Oh, so here I am talking about how he wasn't doing well, and now he's back. So I must be the trigger. But here, he's doing well.
Yeah. I wonder if you did this. You made him do well.
I'm the trigger. Yeah, I'm sort of some sort of trigger. But, yeah, I don't know if it's just you or me, or whether he actually becomes a world champion in that Honda.
Yeah. Like he could become a triple world champion and you dissed him.
I did.
You mocked him.
Yeah, I
did. And then here he is like putting in the groundwork for his multiple championship successes.
That's right.
Let's see. So ignoring Rose's tomfoolery, and a term that I think Mike Lang would have used to deal with Rose's theorising about being the reason why Ginther is on the rise. By the end of the second session, it was actually Hill and the BRM who grabbed pole with a time of 1 minute 30.7, with Clark second only 0.3 behind, and then the awesomely improving and attention-grabbing Ginther in third in the Honda.
There we go.
Yeah. So to race start.
Actually, before we start, Lotus owner, our one and only innovator Colin Chapman, was involved in a brawl with the Dutch police. He would be arrested just hours after the race, and he would have to stay in prison for 2 days.
Wow. And you're mentioning that right now just before the start?
Yeah, I thought, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess what you're doing is you're reflecting the surprise of the time.
Yes.
And you have to give us more details after the race, Rosa, because what you're reflecting is just what the drivers and the other managers were watching him fighting a police officer.
Yes.
Yeah, share more later, that's for sure.
I'll try.
So to the race, as the flag fell, it was Ginther again who shot into the lead in that Honda, followed by Hill in the BRM and Clark in third in the Lotus.
Okay, that's new, but I'm going to give Clark, I'm going to say 2 laps to take the lead again.
Okay, let's see. So Gurney in the Brabham, who was running 4th, Stewart in the 5th in the Brabham, and Holm was 8th after Jack once again stood down in favour of Holm driving in the race.
Wow, given what we know about Jack and what is coming in the short term, I'm amazed at how he's like giving so much as a racer. But again, I just think that it shows the calibre of leader that he is.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
On lap 3, Hill was almost touching Ginther's Honda exhaust and was soon overtaking him under braking. And I'll just say, but he didn't touch the Honda. I don't understand. I'm confused. Isn't that the normal way of driving?
Build a bridge.
So 2 laps later, Clark also overtook the Honda, and then 1 lap later did the same to Hill to take up his familiar position at the head of the race.
Okay. I was a lap out, or maybe 2 laps out, was I? He needed 3 laps to take the lead.
Lap 3, 2 laps later, 5, lap 5, and you said lap 2.
Yeah.
Not far off.
No, not far off.
Yeah. By quarter distance, Clark was 3 seconds ahead of Hill in the BRM and Gurney in the Brabham, and was actually right on Hill's tail. Oh, Gurney was on Hill's tail, sorry. I was thinking of Clark, but no.
I was thinking, Louis, what happened to you? Has your audio gone off? What?
No, it was me realising the grammar wasn't right. Yeah, I was thinking, that the silence was cogs slowly turning. So Hill's BRM then lost its rev counter, making life difficult for Hill. And because of this, Hill eventually had to let Gurney through on lap 25 and then his teammate Stewart just 4 laps later. That rev count is a real factor.
It
like it even affected Brabham as well, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
I thought these guys, they obviously they're using the rev counter, but I thought a lot of them would have been listening.
I just thought it would have been listening as well. Exactly. Yeah.
Stewart was then able to catch and pass Gurney and actually take second place on lap 32. So he was on a bit of a charge here.
Stewart is really performing. Like in every race, he's up there doing something.
Yeah, awesome debut season. Stewart tried everything to rein in Clark, but by the halfway mark, Clark had actually increased his lead. Stewart, however, never gave up, and after another 20 laps, the lead was down to 11 seconds. Clark slowed down a bit in the dying stages to take the win by just 8 seconds. Stewart second, Gurney third, and Hill fourth.
I reckon he slowed down a little bit just not to like absolutely cane his countryman and a rookie. Or just to save the car. He was doing it to save the car.
The last race, his engine was cutting out with 10 laps to go. Yeah. No doubt. He still had some trauma from that.
Yeah.
And you don't need to win. You get the same points whether you win by half a second or a minute. So
that's another impressive win from Clark. And that's 5 wins from 5 starts.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us what happened with Chapman. Why was he arrested after the race?
Well, all I know is that all I could find, like there's not much on it at all. All I could find was that he had punched a policeman, but it doesn't say why. Like I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. But apparently the altercation was at the beginning of the race and they came and arrested him at the end of the race. So a bit unusual.
Very unusual.
Maybe they were going to arrest him, but he wanted to stay for the race. Like he was in, I don't know, he was under police surveillance. I don't know. It's just weird.
Why would the police have cut him any slack?
I know.
If you've punched a police officer, I would suggest you're in the lockup immediately. They don't let you finish off your job and then do due punishment. It's like, no, sir, you have broken the law.
I couldn't find anything. So if anyone out there knows anything about it, let us know. That would be interesting.
I'd love to know what triggered Colin to react that way. It must have been...
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't let him through somewhere. Maybe they restricted his access to the pits or something. We do know that the police...
he needed to tell Lotus. He needed to tell Clark something.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so we've got Clark in the lead, well and truly in the lead on 45 points. Mm-hmm. Hill on 26, Stewart on 25.
Okay.
I think the battle there is whether Stewart can finish above his more experienced teammate there.
Yeah, and maybe take leadership of this team.
And in the constructors, we have Lotus on 45, BRM on 37, so that's a bit closer, and Ferrari on 20. That constructors table means there that the 2 BRMs are doing better than the 2 Lotuses, which is true because Spence hardly gets up there, does he? It's really just Clark carrying it. Does it remind you of something, Luigi?
Anyway, let's leave it there, shall we?
We'll stop there, I think. And we'll be back next week with the end of the 1965 season.
Yeah, cool. Okay, thanks everyone. Okay. See you next time.
Bye. We have a Patreon.
Yay, we're a professional podcast now. So it means a lot to us if you are able to support the F1 Time Portal podcast.
For a small monthly fee, you not only get ad-free podcast content, you will also receive special episodes that are exclusively uploaded for our Patreon financial supporters.
We promise at least 2 additional exclusive episodes each month aligned to the decade we are up to in the show.
And you will also be able to make suggestions about any special episodes you may want us to research and present. We can't promise that we can do all of them, but we will consider them.
So, if that sounds like an entertainment bargain to you, Go and sign up at patreon.com/F1 Time Portal today.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends and non-F1 friends alike.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars or whatever highest is available on the podcast platform that you use.
We have a range of social media handles for you to connect with fellow listeners, so look up F1 Time Portal on all the usual platforms.
Or visit us at www.f1timeportal.com or email us at f1timeportal@gmail.com.
We would like to give credit to our primary reference materials, a series of books called Grand Prix by Mike Lang.
We also use many other written and digital references, which are in our show notes.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.